time for Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast from the Spacebook on the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks, most regular host. That does sound wrong, but never mind. Tour guide to the Whoniverse here on the free-speaking, big-thinking podcast. 15 incarnations of the Time Lord, 61 years and counting. Whenever, wherever, and however you started your journey with the Doctor, we're all over it here at Type 40. I think I'd be a fool to argue against the reality. One has to be a bit of a big mouth to do, well, this. And whilst that doesn't count for all Doctor Who fans, the Whoniverse has no shortage of us or of big personalities with what the hashtag generation term spicy takes. And you know what? I don't think any of us would have it any other way. Not really. Here on Type 40, though, we do like to bring the sugar and bring the spice. I'm going to let them decide between them which is which when I bring on Simon Horton and Sarah Graham.
I really don't think we could possibly comment.
Oh, no, we're not going
Best
there.
not to. We could be the Spice Girls, actually, couldn't we? Let's be honest.
That's my way of saying welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Here in the console room, but we're gonna shuffle back through the decades. So forget this, forget the clean and the clinical and the vast, and head back to the cozy, the warm, and the monochrome. I think. What do you think of that?
Oh, I just love that. It's so evocative, isn't it? It's so atmospheric. It tells you a story just by sitting looking at it. I immediately hear stories coming out of it. It's beautiful.
Stories of old props, old cast members, Sarah, of BBC Television Centre itself, or Riverside Studios, any of those places, Lime Grove. It's, in some ways, it's so long ago, and yet we keep hearing fresh nuggets about it all the time, don't we? There's such a romance attached to it. When I look back to that period too, I'm reminded of little snippets of dialogue as well. Do you remember the first Doctor once asked Ian and Barbara if they'd ever wondered what it would be like to be wanderers in the fourth and fifth dimension? I mean, who hasn't, Simon?
Absolutely. Oh, as a kid, I used to dream of being a Doctor Who companion. I used to have dreams of the TARDIS appearing in the corner of my bedroom and me being able to go into the TARDIS and go off on all these exciting adventures. I think if you're a Doctor Who fan, it's part and parcel of the territory, isn't it?
I think it is. And that's just where it all started. Because by the same measure, there can't be many fans who've not wondered what it would have been like to go from watching the series when you were growing up to find oneself in a position where they are consulting you on the ongoing series itself as it's happening.
Oh, good. Well, it'd be a dream come true, but I think, gosh, the pressure as well.
It's a bit of a poison chalice, isn't it, in a way?
But yeah, God, I mean, yeah. You would feel pretty good about yourself as a Doctor Who fan. You really would.
Yeah, I think there's only one person in Doctor Who history who can lay claim to having been there and done that. It's just one of the connections to our favourite TV series, weaving its way through the time stream of our guest producer, songwriter, DJ, collector, Ian Levine. It's a little bit like getting the Archbishop in, I think, Sarah, isn't it?
Yeah, he does. There is. Well, he is. Royalty, Ian Levine is founding royalty.
Yeah, he is.
Long before I knew who he was, I knew this name. Ian Levine. He was the top dog in the 80s. He helped J&T. Doctor in Distress. It's all part of his reputation. He is bigger on the inside, and it's been.
I can remember first seeing about Ian Levine way back in the early 80s, probably about 83, 84, something like that. And I remember reading in a newspaper article, I was only, how old was I? I about 16, 17. And I remember reading in a newspaper article that Ian Levine was apparently a super fan. He was the biggest Doctor Who fan in the world. And I remember being quite affronted because I remember thinking, hold on, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan. He can't be a bigger Doctor Who fan than me. Turns out he was. But there we go. So, you learn by your lessons, don't you?
Oh, just imagine where this one's going to go. He'll be materializing right after I remind you that if you'd like to do some real-time traveling of your own, each and every edition of Type 40, past, present, and future is just a tap or two away on the device of your choice, but only if you know where to look. Dozens of reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives with all our regular panelists and lots more awesome guests. There's something for every fan over at type40.podbean.com. More boasting later on, and around the halfway mark there's a timeless shuffle across the doorways between dimensions with a Fandom Podcast Network to hear about all the other fabulous shows there covering other geeky pop culture favourites too. Okay, so enough of that. Yes, our guest is primed, but when isn't he? He's well ventilated. Maybe we'll do our best to get venting together with the one and only Ian Levine. Just as Doctor Who itself has evolved and endured from those earliest days when the first generation of 9, 10, 11 and up-year-olds thrilled to the wandering adventures in space and time of those very first incarnations of the Doctor and his companions, so has the fan base, because children, well, we all grow up, don't we? We do. And way back then in the early to mid 60s, huddled in front of those really impossibly small by today's standards TVs, there they were, a great deal of them in short trousers. Legend would have us believe that they often had beans on toast or cheese on toast, something on toast on their laps, as these episodes, 22 to 23, 24 minutes at the very, very most, were paraded across their screen every Saturday night, practically every single week for years and years and years. The 60s generation of Doctor Who fans may have been spoiled, but for many of them, it set them up for life, a life loving this show. And some of them have taken that further than others, and I think none more so than our guest on this edition of the show. Some have described him as the ultimate Doctor Who aficionado, even the fandom supremo. Welcome to Type 40, Ian Levine.
Well, thank you. Some hate me. The portion of fandom can't stand me because, first of all, I know more than they do, and secondly, I speak my mind. When I don't like something, everyone knows about it. I'm embarrassed. I'm an embarrassment to the BBC. But I appreciate all Doctor Who, from an earthly child up to the church on Ruby Road and onwards.
You say that, Ian, but are you still seen as a bit of an upstart? Do you honestly think that?
Very much so, because I animated Mission of the Unknown using one of their own animators, Dan Bush, and it cost me 10 grand. I offered to give it them free, just to put it out. No charge. I'll swallow the cost of I paid whatsoever, but they refused. And it goes on and on. Now I'm actually finding incredibly pioneering ways to take the existing telesnaps and photos from the missing episodes. You can do all sorts of wonderful things. 90% of fandom think I'm a hero and they love me. But those that don't, like the Richard Biglands of this world, they despise me and they would never say a good word about me.
But these acts, they're not acts of defiance, are they? They're born out of passion.
No, because I hate what the BBC themselves are doing to the animations. Celestial Tourmaker made me absolutely, apoplectically angry when I saw it. I've been warned to keep my mouth shut, otherwise I wouldn't get invited back again. So I sat there, front row. I was in the front row because I'm in a wheelchair, and the wheelchair space on the front row, and sat there with Matthew Vaughan and getting angrier and angrier and angrier. Well, all the other plebs in there seemed to like it. They were clapping. People of a younger generation. It's colourful. It's sort of Toy Story-ish, but it had nothing to do with what I saw in 1966. Nothing.
So do you think, Ian, that there is any validity in putting out a version of something like the Celestial Toymaker in the kind of version that kids are going to enjoy?
Marquez quotes the BBC line. He says, we're not here to recreate what was missing. We're here to reinvent it, make it new and fresh. Well, I don't give a shit about that. I hate to make it new and fresh. I want to see it how it was, which is why my AI Dalek Master Plan recreation is so accurate to what I saw when I was 12 years old.
And out of interest, has the BBC ever given you reasons why they do reject them when you hand them to them free of charge?
It's gone on and on. The bullshit excuses like we can't accept anything we didn't commission ourselves. It's just bullshit. Dan Hall, first of all, he was quite open-minded. He used to give out open commissions. Anyone's willing to send in a clip of animation, and if it was good, he'd use them. But then again, he messed me around for 3 years while he told me he was going to use my Sharda, and then in the end, he didn't. And the excuse they gave was because it wasn't Tom Baker, it was Paul Jones doing impersonation of Tom Baker, which sounds more like the 1979 Tom Baker than Tom Baker does now at 90 years old. But that's not the point. They just look for excuses. I feel very hard done by a band. They've mistreated me terribly, especially when you consider I found 21 missing episodes they wouldn't have if not for me. I saved 150 from being junked if I hadn't put a stop to the junkings in 1978 when I picked up the very first Dalek story off the floor and I ripped the tape off it so that it would go back on the shelf. And they were arguing you can't do that. And I rushed around with the guy John Bridger from the BBC Film Library, rushed back to Brentford. He introduced me to Sue Malden, who was a newly appointed archivist. She did not know the BBC were destroying Doctor Who's, and she gave me a letter to rush back to Ealing with Pamela Nash and give a letter saying, do not junk any more Doctor Who's, we need them all. But if I hadn't done that, that Daleks would have gone in the skip that day or the next day, would now not exist. Benjamin Cook, who chopped down the Daleks to 75 minutes for Russell in colour, he had a real go at me because I told him that I thought it was edited with a ham-fisted editing, I called it. I didn't like his editing at all because it lost all the soul of the story, which made him very annoyed and made him very critical of me. Completely missed the point. They wouldn't have a Daleks to edit if I had not saved it, which the BBC themselves will ever give me credit for. Apart from that, the wonderful collection range, which I adore, I've given them more things than I can count for it. Vengeance on Varos, Kinder, so many, Mark of the Rani, extended edits were full of deleted scenes that the BBC junked. JNT used to want to junk them all so no one would ever see them. Eric and Ron Jones used to help by smuggling tapes out so that I could save them and keep them, now in a position to give them back to the BBC for their collection. All those extended deleted scenes came off me. And the fact is they never thanked me for it, apart from giving me a token free copy of every collection. Look, if someone else brought in my exact master plan, AI recreation, showed it to them, they'd be falling over their heels to put it out. Because it's Ian Levine, they won't touch it.
What is it you think that you've done that causes them to just reject it because it's Ian Levine?
Too outspoken. The fact that recently, I told everybody the Celestial Toymaker is a joke and should not be made like that. And they're saying, well, modern fans like it. These people at the BFI clap to it. Of course they clap to it. They wouldn't be so rude as to not clap to it. They look like wooden puppets. And it
is terrible.
The clown with 7-foot legs and Clara sitting on his shoulder like a little sort of, look at that. That's not William Hartnell.
No. It's shocking. It is. We've talked about this on the show before now.
It's not my doctor. And on top of which, William Hartnell in our Dalek Master Plan AI episodes looks and talks like the real thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I'm a younger fan. I don't want to see this either.
I am angry when people do Doctor Who wrong. I am angry. And they don't like that. They want a yes man.
It is strange. I don't understand what this obsession is with trying to reinvent them. There's no need. And we're all in agreement.
It's the suits. I've talked to people high up and they're saying, we're not interested in appealing to the older fans. We just want to make something new and reinvent it, make it fresh and colour. They don't understand the majority of people who buy these are the older fans.
Correct.
Yes.
A lot of wonderful younger fans appreciate the older stuff. They don't want to see it change. Absolute fucking idiots because they won't give us what we want. They want Generation Z fans and they think they're going to aim to them. Why is the Toymaker going to appeal to a new fan? It's stupid, awful.
They're chasing an audience that doesn't really exist.
Yes.
And I agree. I am so eager to see
Yeah.
62. I want to see what it,
Sarah,
you know, what we missed.
Yeah, Sarah, you're too young to have seen it first time round, but you are obviously
know.
appreciate. You want to see it how it was.
I do.
Anyone like me or Jeremy Bentham or Jan Vincent Rudsky or Richard Landon or Gordon Blows or Keith Barnfather were all the beginning of the DWAS. We're all there in September 1978 when the DWAS was formed. We all went to the meetings. We saw the print of the Zabi Part 2 that they borrowed. Jan had borrowed off Tony Cash. And it was the embryonic days of fandom. We all are old enough to have seen those episodes in the 60s. I take them every week off the air. I wrote them up into my books, and they started as 6 pages for an Unearthly Child. By the time it got to Power of the Daleks, it was 60 pages an episode.
Have you tried, Ian, to take the slightly different approach? Because you're saying that the BBC, when you hand them something like Mission to the Unknown, the animation you've done, and they say no because we've got to have commissioned. Can only have something we've commissioned. Have you tried reversing that and saying, okay, then commission me? Let me pitch for some of this.
Of course I have, but they just hate me. They think the team is a pain in the ass of trouble. I mean, you go back years ago when Dan Hall put out the DVD of Silver Nemesis, and I had all the deleted scenes, and they were also the deleted. J&T had done an extended version on VHS, right?
I remember.
Yeah. We didn't have all the scenes, but it had a lot of them. It was about 10 minutes longer. There's some wonderful stuff like where they see Ace's portrait on the wall, and when you see the Queen with the corgis and stuff, there's some wonderful stuff. And they extended it. But when Dan put it out on DVD, being stubborn-headed as he was, he put out only the existing transmitted version and a few loose deleted scenes. Well, I made a big fuss because the fans, if it's got deleted scenes, the fans want to see them. Just because they cut it out to make it 25 minutes an episode doesn't make it better. My Happiness Patrol is 18 minutes longer. 18 minutes. And we edited proper sound and music in it. I keep saying, look, they say, oh, we got the old footage. I said, why don't you look at this and make sure you've got everything in this? And then, no, we don't need it. We don't need it. So I've offered it and they don't. Ed Stradling said they won't want another. They don't want it. So if Happiness Patrol comes out on season 25 box set and it's not the 18 minutes longer version that I've got, you wait and see what I have to say.
Here's the impression that I get, Ian, is from what you talk about detractors and conversations that you have, and you use social media. I think you use it quite regularly. I think you use it quite well, and you're very open with the fandom. And I've seen you engaging in conversation with people who are in control of various brands and things. But when you publish, for example, you recently published, didn't you, a potted review of the Celestial Toymaker after you saw it at the BFI, and you went public with this. But the impression I get is that as firm and as strongly worded as this is, I do get the impression that you kind of publish this kind of material and put it out there as a kind of last resort because you want to be heard, and that maybe you've already spoken to people concerned in these matters up to this point, had a few doors shut in your face or polite refusals, and so you think, well, okay, I'm still going to have my say. Is that how it is?
And Russell Minton was quite nice and polite to me. He would answer my Facebook messages. He was quite pleasant and easygoing, and at least, he did try to nicely explain we can't use any uncommissioned things and this usual BBC crap. Blaming on the BBC lawyers. BBC lawyers, as if they're that tough, they wouldn't bloody stand up to Steph Coburn. If they stood up, they've got a contract when they did the DVD of Unearthly Child, a contract that gives them perpetuity in audio-visual releases on video, home video kind of thing. And they've got a contract. They still won't put it out because they're scared of him.
The thing that I really can't understand with all of this is, if they are going to say that they can't use your stuff because of legally it's got to be commissioned, so on and so forth, we know that when the next animation comes up to be done, let's say Marco Polo, we know that they're going to have to put out there for people to pitch for this stuff to be animated. So I can't understand. Well, they should be pitching, and so why don't they let you pitch?
For the boys, Paul Henry uses Anne-Marie Walsh and Charles Norton. Russell Minton uses shapeshifter on Australia's Jobs for the Boys. It's a closed shop. They won't let you in.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense.
People accuse me of being angry all the time, but this is why. Because they never get it right. It could be so good on the right hands, but they won't listen. They're so stubborn and they think they know it all. Russell Minton was very nice to me, but the minute I really slagged off his Celestial Toymaker trailer preview, he's never replied or even read a message of mine since. Because I told him it's a joke, it's terrible. You know, and he's behind it. He commissioned Web of Fear Part 3, which we all hated. And now he commissioned this.
Yeah, I did hate that.
This is taking a classic beloved story, which I personally adored. Well, I was 12. We got these wooden orange crates. We got 14 of them. We painted a triangle on number 1 to 14 on each one, spread them around the garden. So we had to jump from one to the next with the dash without falling on the grass. So
Brilliant.
That's brilliant.
TARDIS Hopscotch, which you play it when I was 12 in 1966. Play it.
I wish we got footage of that.
Yeah.
And they've gone out of their way to not only to reinvent it, they've made the worst one is part 1, the Joey with the long legs, and the fact that when they swing on the rope to the next block, the next block's vertically upside down on the ceiling. They went into a glass booth to press the buttons, but instead of that, they're going to a yellow car, driving and zigzagging all over the screen. Just pathetic, childlike stupidity. Now, the second episode with the playing cards, they changed. I didn't mind because they made them look like origami paper figures, which I thought was quite clever. I'm open back. Look, the macro didn't look like they were shown, but they look more sinister. I like that.
Does the option on the on this new release, Ian, I'm looking at the specs in front of me now, and disc 1 does contain the animation in black and white. Does that not slightly appease you in some way?
No. I watched the Underwater Ministry. I don't watch them in color. I hate them in color. I only watch them in black and white. Even the Daleks in black and white, I don't feel the episodes are missing. It was really good. And Moonbase is the best ever because they were photorealistic animations. Now, I watched the Underwater Ministry in black and white, better than in color, but it's still a lot of stupid things wrong with it. A lot of things have changed for no reason. Such as the Atlantis lead, the king of Atlantis is Taos, and in the animation he's bald, and in the real one he's got a thick mop of hair. Now they've got episodes 2 and 3. Why couldn't they match what he looked like? Why change it for change's sake?
Why do you think they are doing it, Ian? Why are they changing it for change's sake, do you think? Because it doesn't make sense.
They want it to be there. They want to reinvent it.
Do you think they just want to stamp their identity on it? Just a bit of glory?
Sarah said it exactly. So I couldn't better say it better myself. They're searching for an audience that is not there. You don't have Star Trek fans wanting to reinvent the Captain Kirk episodes, do you? I'm not having reinvented this.
No.
Celestial Toymaker is the greatest insult to my 60 years of fandom there has ever been.
I think the other thing that strikes me with regards to the Celestial Toymaker, which we've spoken about this on the show previously, not just because it's trying to reinvent the wheel, but also because by doing it, by using the quality of animation that they've used, it's so atrocious. The animation looks like something from the early 1990s.
So now they look at mine. They see Clip of My Massacre done 3 minutes. They see all of part 1 of the Dalek Master Plan done. They see other stuff. I'm in the middle of trying several different things. My friend in New Zealand has animated for 12 minutes of part 7 of the Master Plan, The Feast of Stephen, and it's brilliant. But to me, they're embarrassed because we're doing it properly and they want to do it differently. We embarrass them. We're sort of annoyance to them. So when the name Ian Levine comes up, they go, go away. You know, like holding a cross up to a vampire.
There is a lot of that. And I think also not just that, Ian, but I think the BBC are very embarrassed at how well Classic Who is selling. You know, these Blu-ray collections, completely eclipsing anything that's coming out that's new at the moment. And again,
the collection is phenomenal. It's because the collection are trying to absolutely restore it to brilliance. I love every Doctor Who fan, even if you broke, it's your duty to find the money to buy the collection because they are when I first saved episodes in structure, when I was a kid as well, I used to dream of having a way of collecting the whole series to watch in order. The point is, I was very angry with box set 2 because they didn't take the trouble to animate those 2 Crusade episodes. They just left still picture recons on them.
Yeah.
Still picture recons are all well and good for reference, but I don't think they're good enough to enjoy as the only reference. That's why by making them, I look at a still picture reference now and I'm shocked. Why are the mouths moving like they are on mine? Because I've gotten so used to seeing the way the AI has recreated the master plan.
So, you see, for a great many people, Ian, when they watch those recons, as long as they last that 22, 23 minutes and the audio is still intact and the images are telesnapped representations of what were there on screen, then that's enough for them. It's like that's all we have is those still images and they're content with that. What would you say to that school of thought? Or is it just a case of horses for courses?
Watch Bionic Master Plan Part 1.
Yeah.
Have you watched it? Dan, have you watched it?
I've watched it twice.
We've all watched it.
We've all watched it.
And does it not look better than still recon?
Totally.
Yeah, I thought it did.
You feel almost like you've seen the original story. Almost.
We genuinely, when we watched it and we did the review show of it, we all agreed it is as close as you can possibly get to watching that missing episode.
Your bloody fortune. The mouse plans cost me £18,000, £2,000 an episode, 9 missing episodes, and then I want to tackle further. It's a fortune. I can't afford it on myself, so I'm having to find it wherever I can. But I'm doing it in anger because the BBC refused to get it right. They're never going to make it look like it was, and since Moonbase, and I want them to.
Is it just so Ian? Is it really? Is that why you're doing it? Simply because you know I'm sitting here thinking, well, why bother if they're not going to use it?
I'm doing it to show it can be done much better. The BBC way is not the correct way. I'm doing it to show how it can be done. If enough fans see it, no matter what the fuck the BBC do, enough fans know this was the way it should be.
Are you losing any enthusiasm for doing it, or are you still fighting?
Fighting harder than ever. We were working on, got the first 8 minutes of Devil's Planet, which is part 3, because part 2 exists in full. So we've done part 1, we're on part 3 now. The first 8 minutes it's been brilliant. Parts of it, I mean, it almost looked like a real thing. Parts of it, like when Hartnell walks in from the airlock, are not working. And I've done it 6 times now, and I still this morning sent it back to him. He says, well, I've got to get on with the next bit. So you're not doing anything until you fix this. And Hartnell walking from the airlock is not good enough. And if you can't get him to walk in from the airlock, then the whole thing's wasted.
Wow, so you're really being a perfectionist on this.
Oh, if you see something on these and you think that's not good enough, believe me, we've tried to get it better. That's the best we can get.
If the BBC were actually to say to you, okay, Ian, you've been pushing us long enough. Right, we're now going to commission you to do an episode. Would that change? Because then you'd be talking commercially, so you maybe wouldn't be able to be as indulgent.
The only thing that could happen is someone like Ed Stradling, who works for them anyway, like I did with Planet of Giants when I made the episodes 3 and 4, by getting actors in. We had Susan and we had Ian in person. If Ed were to go in and say, look, if I can work with Ian and keep him at arm's length from you, and I can deliver, but the thing is, they're going to want millions. I don't mind if they say, okay, we want to change this, and this, and this, and this, and I would change it all for them until it was to their satisfaction. But it's not even that willingness. It's the thing that we can't. They don't even want to do it. They'd rather animate it looking different. They don't want it to look the same. They don't want it to look real, which is the same reason why you got an story like Underwater Menace, with episodes 2 and 3 exist. They insist on wasting their money doing all 4. Because I think a TV station might show it in colour, showing all 4.
That's the story that I've heard, Ian, and the framing that I've recognised is that those new productions, the Celestial Toymaker included, seem to be done for with other external aspirations for them.
I go back to what Sarah said. The most astute, aware comment I've ever heard in my life. They're trying for an audience that doesn't exist. She hit the nail on the fucking head so hard when she said that. People say you act like I own Doctor Who, and of course I don't own Doctor Who, but it wouldn't be anywhere like what it was if I hadn't made sacrifices. When I was in 1978, was 24, 25 years old, I scraped the money together to buy episodes. I got permission. I was the first human being ever to buy episodes of Doctor Who from the BBC outside of a TV station. And they were the first only let me go less than 7 years. So I bought Frontier in Space because none of us had it then. And they had to tell me part 1, 2, 3, and 6 in black and white, and part 4 and 5 in color. And I sacrificed that money and never got it back. And all that money I spent buying the episodes, by buying them, I was the only one buying them, and that's what stopped them being junked. Look, they act like I'm entitled. Well, I'm entitled because I saved so many episodes from being destroyed and spent all my own money. I had to beg, borrow, steal to do it. My money.
You've invested money, you've invested time, you've invested passion, and you've established contacts. It's probably burnt a few bridges too. You've certainly found yourself
bridges because they resent me. I spent in the days when I used to phone Nigeria to find the Time Meddler and War Machines, and also a set of Red Planet, but we had that anyway. I brought them all back from Nigeria. The phone bill that quarter was £4,000, which I had to spend to keep ringing Victoria Ezeokoli at Nigerian television for her to go out to all the outback huts of Relay and find these film cans for me, which, bless her, she really did. Long before
this is above and beyond. This is above and beyond the call of any kind of duty, Ian.
This is decades before anyone ever heard of Philip Morris. And when they watch the Time Meddler, and they show the BFI, and when they watch the War Machines and stuff, I don't expect thanks for discover them when they've been junked by the BBC. I mean, this is what annoys me about Mission of the Unknown. We did Mission of the Unknown, right? And every time anyone puts it on YouTube, it gets blocked by the BBC.
Yeah.
And the annoying thing is that not only did they destroy it completely, but they not only destroyed the visual, they destroyed the audio. And had fans like me and Graham Strong and David Holman how we not take them off the air ourselves. And I can prove it because you look at my Mission of the Unknown transcript, every word is correct to the script, every word when I was only 12. Every word. And if we hadn't taped it, the BBC wouldn't have it. The point is, technically, taping BBC copyright was illegal. How have we not done something illegal and saved it? The BBC couldn't have it now to make money out of. So what right do they have to take my Mission of the Unknown down? And A, I take the sound, and B, I had an animator draw the pictures and paid them. You can say it's BBC copyright, but why is it BBC copyright? They wouldn't fucking have it if not for me.
Well, thank heaven for you and people like you in preserving what you did when you could in that way. But my personal perception of it, Ian, isn't that you behave like you own Doctor Who. It never has been. And I believe that a great many people feel the same way as I do and have received it this way. But the way that you phrase things and the way that you could sometimes come across, I think people see that passion and that anger as you've described it yourself. And they get very, very defensive about it. There's a wall of reactance starts to get built up. Who is this person that thinks they're more than we are? But I don't think that you do feel that way. However, I do understand how one such as yourself and Graham and everybody else may feel proprietorial and protective of something that simply wouldn't exist for us in the here and now had each of you not done the things that you did.
Tell me about this. Now listen. I take the sound, Richard Landon take the sound, James Russell's guy, I can't remember his name, it's like a sort of Spanish second name, but he take all the sound from An Earthly Child onwards actually. 7 or 8 people did take the sound, but nobody ever wrote them all up week by week, visually describing what they saw like I did. When the Dalek Master Plan was on, I was sat in front of the TV with a notepad and a pen, a big thick notepad, and the scribbled notes will put 50 pages of notes.
What was the moment that made you want to do that? Did you do it for other shows as well?
I was hooked. I was hooked by the time. I'd already started writing it up by episode 2.
Wow.
It's just incredible that it had that much impact on you.
The double sides had a contest, with each by an exercise book, one of those school line pages.
Yeah.
Who could remember the most? So that's why we wrote An Earthly Child up. And I came first because I got 6 pages out of it. The The first episode I audio taped was part 5 of The Reign of Terror, A Change of Identity. And so that was a little tiny round 50-minute tape, which wouldn't turn over and go the other way.
Wow.
And you take 15 minutes of an episode and lose the last 10. And I had to scramble like crazy to write it up so I could use it again the following week.
Ian, given the fact of how you just recounted that to us, is it a stubbornness on your part, or is it a competitive streak that you had, like you described with your schoolmate there? Is that something that you think still survives in you and sort of powers you, fuels you in all these quests?
I don't know what it was. Somehow Doctor Who appealed to me more than anything else in my life ever had. And that continued through to 1969, when I lost interest in it for a short while. After The Mind Robber, I didn't watch anything until for that time, I didn't watch anything until War Games.
Why did you lose interest in it? Any particular reason?
16 years old and growing up and going to university and stuff, and just, I don't know, I regret that because I had all my all my tapes and pages of notes and I threw them out. Got all my transcripts from an earthly child through to the Ice Warriors. But then by the Ice Warriors, by Underwater Menace, I was not able to, I was falling behind. I wasn't doing an episode a week. I wasn't doing an episode over 2 weeks, and I fell further and further behind. And then I kind of stopped and threw the scribble notes out. I never threw the transcripts out. I treasured them. I kind of got interested again, so I tried to then go back and do it from memory. I had bits of tapes, for instance, Evil of the Daleks. I still have most of the tapes of that. Yeah. Just bits and pieces of memory. I don't know what it was about The Mind Robber that turned me off.
You didn't enjoy it. I'm assuming you didn't enjoy it. Is that it?
I thought it was stupid.
What do you think of it now, out of interest?
Still
stupid.
By far my least favourite round. By far. So far my least favourite round.
Really? Wow, because I love The Mind Robber. It's bizarre. I love that.
Yeah, I do. It's so fascinating.
Which I utterly adore, but at the time didn't see live.
Did you think you had a concern then, as still a boy, that if this is the way the show is going, then it's not the show that I thought it was, not the show that I need to be?
Didn't analyse it that deep. Just lost interest temporarily.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of us do have those moments.
I got wickedly back into it by Spearhead from Space, which I audio recorded and which I've still got all my actual scribble notes for. I've still got those pages and pages and pages of scribbled details from start to finish of each episode. I've got them all.
You do these notes immediately after watching the episode. Is that the no?
Did the notes while watching the episode. So half the time my eyes were on the notes, not the screen.
Wow. So you missed so much of it actually visually at the time.
That was very good. No, it was very good. I really, it was almost like shorthand. I scribbled so much down. 1970, the only episodes I missed live was the Android Invasion parts 2, 3, and 4, when I had to go to America to record my first album with the Exciters. And I had thought, I didn't want to miss it, but there was no video recorders available then.
No.
It's understandable for children to lose interest in a TV show for a little while, but we don't expect the BBC, the people who make these wonderful things, we don't expect them to lose interest, to lose pride.
Everyone lost interest. BBC Doctor Who is a huge cash cow for them now. J&T, for all his faults, used to try and point that out to them. Who would have thought in 1983, when we were riding high with Longleat, with 70,000 people turning up, with the show being more popular than ever, that 2 years later it would have been cancelled.
Yeah. Is there any part of you that sort of feels, with the rejection that you've had for the animations that you've done, is there any point that you've kind of had your love for Doctor Who rattled from that point of view? Have you begun to sort of lose love for Doctor Who for all of the frustrations that you suffered?
No, because I was determined to have everything that was meant to be. So I reconstructed the 6 missing stories from the season that was cancelled. A Nightmare Fair, The Ultimate Evil, Mission to Magnus, Yellow Fever, Hollows of Time, and Gallifrey. Now, I'll tell you a very interesting story, which is why I think Richard Bingham's an idiot. He only goes on the written word. He doesn't assume that anything could be right apart from what's written down. Now, when they were making that. They'd already started the scripts on that season. Eric Sayward had planned to write Gallifrey as the last story of the 6, right?
Yeah.
Now, J&T wouldn't let, said he'd written enough stories, wouldn't let him. So secretly, Eric and I discussed it. He was going to write Gallifrey, but the only way he could get around it is the same way as Terence Dix got around the War Games, that a story would have to fall through at the last minute.
Right.
So he purposely commissioned a really shit story called The Children of January by Matthew Feeney Callan. He had no intention of using this story, but it was a 6th story, so that when it fell through at the last minute, he would say to John, there's no time to find another writer. I'm going to write this story, major story set on Gallifrey, which is what happened. And Eric's now quite forgetful, so he'd forgotten all about that. But I'm telling you, I have a photographic memory. And he told me the whole plot. He was going to blow Gallifrey up at the end. But he was scared of J&T objection to that. He knew how difficult, the same way J&T objected to the end of the eventual part 14 of Turn of the Time. And Bob Jones died. But Gallifrey was definitely going ahead. Eric also had a 3-page rough episode breakdown of Yellow Fever from Robert Holmes, which he gave me, which I still have somewhere. I've lost it. I don't know where it is. Eric had it himself, and he's the one that gave me a copy. Which is how I was able to reconstruct all 6 of those stories. 3 of them, Nightmare Fair, Mission to Magnus, and The Hollows of Time, using the actual Big Finish copies, because they did the audios of those.
Yes, they did, yeah.
I added a few scenes because there was some mistakes in Hollows of Time, but I did using that because I was only it for me and my friends to have a copy, and we did it like a color loose cannon kind of recon style.
Yeah.
And
I see.
clouds moving and various things on top of that, and the other 3, Ultimate Evil by Wally K. Daly, Yellow Fever by Robert Holmes, and Gallifrey by Eric Sayward. I managed to get all the scripts worked out, and we went in the studio and we recorded all the sound with Nicola Bryant, with John Gowder. That's the guy who did William Hartnell. He did Colin Baker because he could impersonate anyone, and he did a very good one because Colin Baker refused. I offered him and he refused. We had Gallifrey. We had Julian Glover. We had Milton Johns. We had Peter Miles and John Leeson playing the con man. We wanted to look like John Leeson's episode of Blake 7 called Gambit.
Okay.
Toys and Crantor. Do you remember? Very camp.
Yeah.
Brilliant. One of my favourite
I
episodes.
love that. Yeah, I love that one.
But Crantor was Aubrey Woods, wasn't it? Yes. And Aubrey was getting dementia and he couldn't do it. He's dead now, but this is when he was alive. So John Leeson said, I'll do it. I know exactly how to do the part. So he played it like this outrageous camp character, like in Blake 7. It was very Robert Holmes. We had the 2 con men, and we had them going to Gallifrey, trying to con them. And it was all true. In the end, Colin Baker had to con them. We had a brilliant, hysterical scene in it where they're trying to find the rarest mineral in the universe, Magronite 1.5, which was actually mentioned in The Pirate Planet, because they're auctioning the secrets of the Matrix, which again goes on to the story that would have
leads into the Trial of a Time Lord.
Yeah.
This is the story before that. So they've got the secrets of the Matrix, and they're going to auction them. They've stolen them, these 2 crooks, and they've stolen them from Gallifrey. I'm trying to remember the exact plot. It's very confusing.
We're hanging on every word, Ian. It sounds brilliant.
It does.
It's really good.
The crooks ended up with the secrets of the Matrix, which they're auctioning up for the highest bidder. And everyone's trying to outbid whole star systems and everything. Colin Baker and he's in tow with Flavia,
Chancellor Flavia.
Yeah.
Because actually Diana Sheridan was 95 then, and she recorded the whole intro, but she was too frail to do the rest.
Oh, bless.
In that time, she did like a deadly assassin kind of intro, but she did it.
Yeah.
So, and her daughter Jenny Hanley did all the rest of the dialogue.
Brilliant.
But then Jennifer Hanley and the Doctor, they've escaped prison on Gallifrey, and they dress up as Hasidic rabbis. Very, very funny.
Of course they do.
Like you do.
We've all done it.
They create a fake clone of the Magronite 1.5 to auction. to get the secrets of the Matrix back. And the crooks end up with a fake Magnite 1.5, which is programmed to dissolve in 1 day's time. And
you're clearly very proud of these projects, and I can see by the look on your face you're still amused by these ideas.
That's one of the best things I've ever done. I'm just trying to think. They try, because the con men come in first of all to see Chancellor Flavia, and they try to con her out of something, and she sees right through them.
And can you remember, Ian, how much of this is kind of true to the original way back in 1985 as Eric was conceiving it?
Everything that I know from what Eric told me at the time.
So it's as genuine as we can get.
Yeah.
Eric said, I want to play with con men like Robert Holmes did in the past, you know, and I want to work off them, trying to be stupid enough to con Gallifrey and all that kind of stuff. And they get their comeuppance. And the end, he's going to destroy Gallifrey. No, I didn't destroy Gallifrey, but I made the crooks think they destroyed it. And the crooks were...
Yeah, because it's still got to fit in with Trial of a Time Lord.
Julian Glover, Waris Hussein, and Milton... Well, yeah, Milton John.
Waris Hussein.
Wow. Brilliant. This has never had any form of release. There's nothing. No, you just can't get this. Is it? This must be so frustrating to you to have all this stuff and not be able to get it out there for people to access.
What's the point, though, Simon? If Eric Saywood has forgotten this, forgot what he told you all those years ago, have you since played it to Eric and he's gone, oh, I remember now. Yeah, I did think of this. Is Eric aware that you've created all of this?
Yeah, I called it David Agnew in the end.
Yeah, brilliant.
Of course you did.
I like it. But it must be so frustrating to have it there and not be able to get it out there.
Rewriting the script from Eric Saywood's brief. That's what it was. Yellow Fever was much, much closer to Robert Holmes' storyline. Much closer. Now, Robert Holmes wrote a storyline with the Master and the Brigadier in it.
Yeah.
No Rani, but J&T was moaning he wanted the Rani in it. Had it been made, he would have got his way and put the Rani in it.
Yeah.
Robert Holmes' original storyline never had the Rani in it.
No.
Just as his original Five Doctors starred Sutek.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. What,
No,
Robert Holmes' original?
Robert Holmes was writing the Five Doctors with Sutek as the main villain. And I want Daleks and Simon and this and that and the other. And Bob Holmes said to Eric, I can't do this. I
Can't do that.
I said to Eric, you've got to give it Terence. There's no one else
Yeah.
good enough to do it. So he did give it Terence on my advice. J&T, on the other hand, I kept saying, you've got to have a classic director, either Waris Hussein or Douglas Camfield. He left it till 6 weeks before.
Yeah.
Asked Waris Hussein, and he didn't. He left it too late. Waris laughed at him. So went to Douglas Camfield, who phoned me up and said, how dare he offer me this 5 weeks before they're going into, what kind of respect is that?
Yeah.
So why J&T said to me, we've got Peter Moffat doing it because he's done Doctor Who's before. It suggests Richard Herndon for J&T, which if you read the BFI thing, when they show the Five Doctors, actually says Richard Herndon was chosen by Ian Levine. Actually says it on it.
Okay.
That is fact that everyone, you can't disprove anyway.
Yeah, I had heard that.
I was script consultant from 79 through to 86. Now, I would not have been there if I told my true feelings to J&T. If I'd said to him, I can't have these question marks on the collar. How could you make Colin Baker's costume that distasteful? If I'd said that, then I would have been out. So I had to bite my tongue and be a bit of a yes man myself. And finally, when we cast Bonnie Langford, I said to her, you can tread on a worm till it turns. I'm not taking any more of this. I just can't.
You have to pick your battles, don't you? But that was probably...
I fought my last 6 or 7 years to be there to help him improve it. But he's his own worst enemy, and he goes backwards. And when I left, it got even worse. Ken Dodd, Hale and Pace, Nicholas Parsons. Whether Nicholas Parsons was good is irrelevant. It's the reason he was cast.
Yeah.
The fact that he was good was more accidental than by...
She always said to me, bums on seats, like the Morecambe Wise show. We want special guest stars, the public know. The worst thing was at that Brighton convention when someone said to him, what do you think's the best story you've ever made? And he said, The Twin Dilemma.
Oh, okay. Yeah, your heart sinks at that point, doesn't it? Really?
Was he being serious, or was he?
Yeah, no, he didn't like Hazel Androzani at all. He was very angry that Graham Harper got an award, and the public loved it so much because he didn't get it. It was not glitzy and flashy enough for him. It was not his kind of stuff.
But it's bizarre, isn't it? Because when you look at the first 4 seasons, I think Tom Baker's last, and then all of Peter Davison's, they're quite dark and dramatic and serious. Season 18 in particular. So it was only in the latter years that it became like a West End show, isn't it?
From the minute the Leisure House started with that, the fact that instead the Doctor was now wearing a uniform instead of a costume, instead of an outfit, was wearing a uniform.
But nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is that the tone of those series were nothing like the tone of the latter series, which did become very, as you say, very Ken Dodd, very, very show business.
You've got to remember that during Revelation of the Daleks, they did the filming of Necros near where they were recording the pantomime. They were putting the pantomime on, and they kept Colin Nicola away from the actual BBC rehearsals.
Yeah.
JNT's priority was his pantomime.
Yeah.
Is that why that story? You see, I've never really taken to Revelation of the Daleks, and I think part of it is because it does feel quite disjointed to me, and that's the reason why.
Yeah, because they weren't available because of the pantomime, which is why Colin Nicola were only in those scenes in the first half, in the snow.
And it's also, as I understand it, why Nicola and Colin were not present for the rehearsals, I think, of Time Lash.
He cast Bonnie Langford so she could be in his pantomime. So that's the only reason he cast her.
I'm learning so much about these episodes that I watched when I was a child, Sarah.
Yeah.
Baker with Bonnie Langford on Kirby wires. This is why it was not going the way I liked it, and I just walked away.
You've talked a few times about what the general public want, what the viewers want, and how they see or saw Doctor Who then, classic Doctor Who. But as somebody who watched it from the very beginning and was there pretty much making the show, albeit unofficially, what do you think the public's perception of Doctor Who was? How did it change?
What is the highest ever rated Doctor Who episode transmitted ever? Number 1 on the TV charts, 93 on the Appreciation Audience Index.
City of Death.
Odd.
City of Death? No.
No.
Destiny of the Daleks?
City of Death.
Yes, because ITV was on strike, that's all.
Oh, well, in that case, Pyramids of Mars, the repeated Pyramids of Mars.
Way off. The highest ever Doctor Who rating is Journey's End.
Oh, okay, right. I'm thinking classic.
And favourite, which had old characters like Sarah Jane coming back into it, which had old companions coming back, all of them. They had Martha in it, they had Rose in it.
Yeah, but how many viewers were that? Do you know, Ian? How many viewers were for that then?
10 overnight.
But that did, as you've just said, though, that kind of rewarded the people who'd been following, in that instance, New Doctor Who for 4 seasons.
Saying that the public, there's an episode when if you didn't know your Doctor Who, you wouldn't know who the hell was there.
They invested in it for the 4 years of their life.
And the Daleks and everybody. Everybody from the last 4 years comes back and makes this joyous montage of Doctor Who that felt like an anniversary.
Yeah, it did.
It really did.
Quintessential Doctor Who in every sense of the word. And the public loved it. The appreciation of that print is more important than anything. I think during Jodie, I think the appreciation index fell as low as 68.
I remember that week very vivid because there was that crackover cliffhanger as well of the 10th Doctor regenerating.
Yes. That Russell T Davies is best.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that the Giggles show Russell Davies is best, but I think that he's got a bit too obsessed with his own agenda because the Star Beast had far too much transgender. Look, I'm very liberal. I'm gay. I'm disabled, and I'm a Jew. So I'm already in a minority. The lines about pronouns and the lines about with the meat, always the meat. Is it he or she?
Yeah.
And then
it breaks the spell. It breaks the spell, doesn't it?
Chastising him over women being better than men, kind of thing. It's a bit too Rusty Davies' agenda. And the second one,
Wild Blue Yonder,
I didn't like at all for many reasons. I also object to the fact that why make Sir Isaac Newton Asian looking?
Yes,
as well.
Yeah.
It's mystifying.
It's just for the sake of being politically correct. It's not necessary. I love the giggle, and I really enjoy the Church on Ruby Road. So I think Russell could be back to form, but I think he took a bit of a gender pushing for first 2 episodes to prove it.
But looking back to what you've just pinpointed there, though, Ian, what you talk there about something that the giggle had to some extent, but that Journey's End had in spades, a party that the entire audience was invited to reward that commitment in the show and our affection for those characters.
Yeah. But, I still love Doctor Who. I mean, I love the Church on Ruby Road.
I know you do.
Despite its faults, as much as I love... my favourite era is Hartnell and Troughton, of course. Absolutely. I mean, my top 5 stories are 4 Hartnells: is the Master Plan, the Massacre, the Myth Makers, and then the Celestial Toymaker, all Hartnell. And then 5th, Power of the Daleks. I've thought about this a lot.
Do you go back and watch that material quite regularly, Ian?
I know it off by heart. I can quote it off by heart. I'm going, my favourite scene from the Dalek Master Plan is Mavic Chen arguing with the Dalek Supreme because they've just accused him of incompetence in losing the Terranium core. And he says, if that is incompetence, then I have failed. The Dalek Supreme says, you make your incompetence sound like an achievement. And then the Dalek comes up and says, the Dalek pursuit ship's been stolen. Stolen? Mavic Chen says, what, really? And you had the audacity to accuse me, Mavic Chen, of incompetence. It is not. Really? It is not. And the Dalek Supreme is trying to get a word out. Mavic Chen keeps throwing his hand and go, really? Like this. Finally says, it is not an emergency. No, more like a catastrophe.
You do a pretty good impression, actually, there, Ian. I'm pretty convinced.
A bit worrying, yeah. A bit worrying.
It's in the episode 2 that does exist.
Yeah.
Where Zephon questions, why would you betray the solar system? And he says, Mark, you surely by betraying the solar system, you mark yourself out as a supreme traitor. Mavic Chen says, traitor, an archaic word for such a man as yourself. Considering that at different times the planet Fisar and the embodiment Gris have both tried to depose you. That's just brilliant. That's my hope was in
glorious stuff.
That's glorious. Using words to create Fisar, embodiment Gris, to create an environment that they would like that is normal to them. You know what I'm saying? Like in the Rebus operation, when it says I should have to send a hypercable from Stavros. Stavros is far away from Magellanic clouds, as it is. You know what I'm saying? It's all talking about a.
It's world building, isn't it? It's world building.
Yeah. Oh, it's world building, and that's what
in words only.
Building makes a great Doctor Who. Robert Hope and Terry Nature were both kings at it.
Yes.
Ian, we talk to a lot of other Doctor Who fans on this show, and whether they be fans who've just watched the show or and read the material, like the magazine and the books in between, people who've taken it through their lives like that, or people who've turned their fandom into their job, and they may work on the audio dramas, they may write the books, all that kind of thing. But when it comes to the appreciation of Doctor Who, what the common ground that we often find is that it's inspired a lot of people to go into either doing something creative and artistic or into being writers themselves. What do you think that your love of that series all this time, what has it promoted in you and how has it made your life better?
No, I've been a record producer for 50 years. I started in February of 1975.
That's creative, isn't it?
The money but the money I made in 1978 from producing records, every penny went to buy those episodes. Every penny, because I bought 130 different prints off the BBC. Dalek to Dalek Invasion of Earth, The Chase, all those, I bought them off the BBC myself. First on Umatic tapes, then on film prints. And I mean, my career has had very little to do with Doctor Who other than financing it. But I did, because my record High Energy sold 7 million copies and J&T was around at the time. He did let me write the theme to K9 and Company.
Yeah.
I love the theme to K9 and Company.
He said, you can write it. So I went to my old writer, Fiacre Trench. I wrote all these big disco hits in the 70s. And I said, you can write this with me. Let's do it together. And then when he'd written it, he said, you're going to put my name first, Fear, Contention, Ian Levine. I said, no, I'm not. It's my project. I'm not putting it. He said, always Ian Levine, Fear, Contention. Always. This time, it's going to be Fear, Contention, Ian Levine. I said, no way. I refuse. He says, right, well, I refuse permission for you to use my created track. You have to start again with someone else. By which time, J&T had already accepted the track. So it went out saying Fear, Contention, Ian Levine, which was absolutely unfair and wrong. I can't slag him off because I'm working with him again. I just wrote 4 songs. Just working with him for the first time in 35 years.
Let bygones be bygones.
Just sold 12 million records together. High Energy sold 7 million.
What do you, the K9 and Company theme, which I agree with Dan, I love it, but it does get some stick. What do you think of it now?
No, you need to know the story. J&T said, I want heart to heart. I want big strings and big orchestra. So I said, we can't afford to demo big orchestra. I said, put synthesizers on it, and I'll have Peter Howell reinterpret it using string and stuff. So we did it, explaining that, you know, you can
hear it with strings. I can hear it in my brain now with strings.
Lines. That's what we wrote it for. And the bam bam was meant to be bar steps.
Yeah, anyway, you can hear it.
Yeah, it went to the orchestra, but J&T handed it to Peter Howell, who copied the synth sounds, but even worse, he had less, because he had far cheaper stuff than we had access to, because we were professional record producers. So to a large extent,
it's little more than a demo. The version that's used on the show is little more than a demo by the sounds of it. Then
my original, I put an album out called Bass Band Expressway, who were my studio band with girl singers, right? And as this was our studio band doing K9 and Company, I put our original version of K9 and Company on the CD. So if you want to hear the original recording before Peter Howell got his hands on it, go on Discog, www.discog.
Yeah.
For the best of Eastbound Expressway. It's an American album that came out in 1994, and it's got the original version of K9 and Company on it.
I had no idea.
Well,
Simon, guess what you're getting for your birthday?
I'm hunting that one down.
Did.
Looking at that K9 and Company theme now, are you still proud of it?
Oh, hang on. You're jumping the gun. The next musical thing was when the show was cancelled. J&T was on at my house with Gary Downey, chain smoking endless cigarettes, drinking a whole bottle of vodka, pisses a fart, and Gary Downey says, I know what we're going to do. We're going to make a charity record like Band-Aid, save the show. And I said, oh, God forbid. J&T looked at me and says, you'll do it. They call me Evil Annie as a nickname because it's an anagram of Ian Levine. EVILANNIE.
I love that.
Brilliant.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad you brought this up, Ian.
9 letters of Ian Levine, Evil Annie. And Gary Downey said, Evil Annie's going to produce it. So just the year before, had a record that sold 7 million copies. And it had been the best #1 single across Europe the whole year. And I can't do this. And then John says, have I given you a privileged position for the last 5 years? Yes. Do you want it to continue? Yes, John. So you will do it. So I was told to do it. So you got Paul Mark Tams to cast it. You know, Davey Van Day and Bucks Fizz and Faith Brown.
Sally Thompson, Phyllis Nelson, Warren Cann from Ultravox.
Oh, yeah, well, it's Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer, absolutely. But listen, I'm going to read you a quote that you supposedly gave to The Guardian, Ian. You supposedly said to The Guardian, it was an absolute balls-up fiasco. It was pathetic and bad and stupid. It almost ruined me. You said that.
That's why I let you, mate.
That's true.
Are you still embarrassed about it?
Absolutely hate it. I've had a very illustrious career. I have actually recorded over 3,000 recordings over 50 years. I've written nearly 3,000 songs. I've won a Brit for best single of the year. I'm not going by my hits. More important to me is the soul music that I've done. My Northern Soul I just got a brand new album out called Until 2024. But there are occasional fans who are both fans of my music and fans of Doctor Who love me to bits because I've filled 2 areas of their life. But, you know, the bane of my existence, the absolute stain on my career is Doctor in Distress, because it's just it's just awful.
But do you not realise that there is a degree of love out there for it? Me included. I'm on there as loving that. But for all of what it is, it was a moment.
Every time I say anything when I was on Gallifrey Base, who hate me, every time I would criticise, like, you know, would say something like the animation on the Robert Snowman is terrible, and they replied this on the one I made Doctor in Distress.
Oh, that's low. That's below the belt. That is.
Come back to bite me. Always people use it as a stick to beat me with.
The only thing I would say to you, Ian, and I know this won't be any comfort whatsoever, but it should be, is that as embarrassed as you may be about it, it does have its legacy, and it's left a mark. It has left a mark, and people do. I can remember the words straight off.
2 little copies to even cover its pressing costs. Didn't make anything for charity because it didn't even cover its pressing costs. So I pressed the vinyl. And then BBC made a joke of it on Comic Relief as the worst charity record of all time. They actually played a bit, and the audience was in hysterics. I am so embarrassed to have my name.
I get it. I do understand it.
I hate it.
People do love it. People love it.
I hate it.
I didn't know it hadn't made any money for the charity. That I can see why you think, well, because you'd say, well, okay, this has sort of blemished my career a little. I don't know this, but at least it did this for a good cause. You haven't even got that.
It didn't sell 500 copies, so I don't know how people have even got it.
Ian, can I ask you this? Do you remember?
I don't know how copies are out there because it sold so few.
I bought one.
These two bought them all.
I bought one. I definitely bought one. Can I ask you, when you were making it, did you realise at the time it was awful and you just kept ploughing on?
Mark Tams, it just reminds me of him. Gary Downey had him cast Doctor in Distress, and it was terrible. The embarrassment of who was on it.
But can you remember actually the studio recording?
Phyllis Nelson was on it, and some of my artists, Michael Brown and Eileen Bentley. Michael's a female, MIQUEL. She had a million seller called Summer and Soul at the time. A couple of credible artists, the Hot Gossip were on it. It was just naff, light entertainment cast, naff, BBC Radio 2 Saturday afternoon, sunshine down the pier kind of show. Oh.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blood of Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
You've just reminded me of something, though, a couple of minutes ago. You mentioned Gallifrey Base and being taunted on Gallifrey Base. And I've seen the way that...
my friend Andy Fairclough went on there and he put comments about my AI recreations and how popular everybody's raving about them all over the net. And of course, Richard Bignell comes back and says it's terrible and no one raves it, everyone hates it. Anything that Richard Bignell says about me is tainted by toxic poison. But anyway, so Andy retaliated. He rounded up 20 or 30 different quotes from people saying it was like watching the real thing, and he put it up in retaliation to prove that people were raving. On Gallifrey Base, anything to do with Ian Levine is like holding a cross to a vampire.
But Doctor Who fandom has always been like this, hasn't it, Ian? It just is toxic.
Not that toxic. I remember when Earthshot was recorded, JNT said to me, here's the key. You got the key from downstairs. Here's the key. I want you to go upstairs and lock the viewing room so no one can watch the studio. And I had to go upstairs, and all the drafts were in there, about 20 of them. And I actually had to push them out and lock the door.
I bet that went down well.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They resented it bitterly. But JNT said he didn't want anyone to see the Cyberman before it went out, as it was spoiled.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Locked. But every studio has a viewing gallery, two flights above, where you watch through the glass window.
Yeah.
There's a monitor in there. You can see what's being recorded. I went there first with Bob Richardson to watch Invasion of Time being recorded. And then every episode since of Invasion of Time, all the way through Rebus, Operation Power Planet, everything. Wow. I saw everyone being recorded all the way up to Sharda. And after Sharda, I was in the producer's gallery for every recording, from all the way from Leisure Hive all the way through to the Mind Warp.
I am so jealous. I am
me
so
too.
jealous.
I think it's because you do feel that pang.
When Kaiser Anderson was being recorded, he wasn't there. He was at an American convention. He didn't care about Kaiser Anderson. For him, it was a story. Even though it's Davison's last story, he hated the story because he hated Robert Holmes.
Yeah, he didn't want Robert Holmes on the show, did he?
I remember going back to his first job on Doctor Who. Was Horror Invisible Enemy was recorded before Horror Fang Rock. He was the production unit manager, which was the Costa of all three of Graham Williams' years before he took over as producer, right? Mm-hmm. Every one of them says production unit manager, John Nathan Turner. That was while Robert Holmes was a script editor. So he hated Robert Holmes. There was something.
Going back to your fan club there on Gallifrey Base, you and I have actually crossed paths before, Ian, and it was on Gallifrey Base 15, 16 years ago. And this is where my perception of you and of that platform, actually, of that message board changed, because it was the day that Verity Lambert passed away.
Yeah.
And people were talking about it, obviously very, very shocked, I think, because none of us really knew that she'd been ill.
I knew her, and I can prove that by the fact that all those extras on the beginning box set, also about, I had her in the studio interviewing her.
I know.
I went for dinner with her and Wallace Hussein together at the Bibendum restaurant in the Michelin building in Kensington.
Yeah.
She told me everything behind the scenes that went on. She was marvelous.
Well, I remember vividly, Ian, you posted on Gallifrey Base, not a long passage, but a really sort of heartfelt passage about Verity dying. It was very candid.
Order.
I know, and I remember, and I replied to this. This is a great loss, Ian, and thank you for your comments. And you messaged me. You sent me a direct message within about half an hour. Look, I think your message was your comment was uncalled for. I'm really, really shocked. I've just lost my friend, and that was a cheap shot you made. And I replied, no, Ian, I think you got the wrong end of the stick. I really appreciate the post that you've made. It's really generous, and how I offered my condolences at the loss of your friend. And you then apologized, and you said to me, I'm really, really sorry, Dan. You said, I'm just used to, on this platform, everybody comes for me right away. You said, I'm not used to people being kind and genuine.
They're hateful, they're toxic and spiteful and venomous, malicious, malevolent.
You've had this through all of fandom, haven't you? You've had this. People have been against you.
It turned me off going on Gallifrey Base, because I realised that you were right.
Gallifrey Base epitomises the toxic worst side of fandom, and is dominated by Jodie Whittaker fans. Toxic, poison. toxic and I'm banned forever.
You've had this historically throughout the years. You've been a controversial, divisive character. Is that must be so frustrating to you, though?
It is, of course. Luckily, I've got my Ian Levine Doctor Who forum on Facebook with 4,200 people who at least appreciate it. And I'm very good moderator.
Given all that you've said over the past hour and a half about the difficulties you've had getting your animations out there, having fans being leveling animosity towards you, but you're still presumably passing stuff over. Go on, Ian.
None of that can possibly diminish my love for the show. And the fact
that I was going to ask.
The fact that I paid £2,000 for each episode of the master plan, I paid £2,000 for The Nightmare Begins, and I have given it free to at least 2,000 people.
And you're still passing stuff to BBC Studios to use on the Blu-ray box sets.
Yeah, on the latest one, box set 15, Ed came round to my house, took my original Philips tapes that I taped off air in 1977, took them all away to play them on an old Philips machine to get the continuities off.
Brilliant.
Next week, Doctor Who enters the Sunmakers. It all came from me.
And you do always get a thanks they always do give you a thanks in the credits at the end.
Arc of Infinity.
Okay.
All those deleted scenes were mine. Ron Jones gave them to me. He directed it. He came round to my house with VHS tapes of all the deleted scenes and gave them me as a gift. I gave them all to them. Not one mention at the end, thanks for Ian Levine.
Oh, okay. Because I know I have seen on some of the Blu-rays, you do get a thanks.
Ones that Ed does, I always get a thanks.
I think I recall you getting a thanks at the end of the Logopolis one.
I had pneumatic tapes from Peter Grimwade and stuff on Logopolis. I actually did the sequence where they're having flashbacks. Doctor, monsters, and the companions. I created them all. I timed them into each episode. Gave them to JNT. I did them all.
Because I know one of my biggest sources of frustration was on that Logopolis Blu-ray disc that we get, I think, about 20 minutes of the studio tape, and I know more exists. And I was like, I want to see this tape. And they didn't use it. I don't know why they didn't use it.
The face changing was all on there.
That's on there, but that's all that is on there.
Hanging On was recorded a different evening.
But I know that it exists.
Not necessarily, no.
There's bits. They've got bits of it that exist.
Okay. I had a bit. And Peter Crocker used to come around to my house to everything I had. I've donated so much, particularly something that works the best for me is Vengeance on Varus. It's got a lot of deleted scenes. They did a version which was phased out the time code almost invisibly.
Yeah.
And added and put all the scenes where they should be, and it's a much better watch.
Yes.
The point is, when Philip Morris returned those 9 episodes, he charged a lot of money for them. When I ran up a 4,000 phone bill to get War Machines in Time in the back, I got not only no money for them, but of course no contribution to the phone bill or anything. And then at my own time, when I sat there in BBC Enterprises with first Peter Lydia White, who was a little snowy, who used to work as a floor manager in Doctor Who, and then Roger Brunskill, I had to sit them with a long list of the episodes and a long list of who'd bought Doctor Who. And we had a telex machine in those days. There was no fax yet. We go back to about 1981. We telexed all these different countries. Cyprus, for instance. We're looking for any missing Doctor Who's. We're desperate to get them back. If you have any, please reply. And they replied, we have 4 episodes of The Reign of Terror, which we needed, which I got back. That's totally down to me, that was.
Do you think, Ian, there are more episodes out there still to be discovered?
No, I think it's finished. When I started looking for them in 1978 and started finding them, I did find all sorts of stuff. I found David G in Australia with War Machines 2. I found Bruce Campbell found me The Reign of Terror Part 6, which was the first episode ever returned. That and the War Machines episode. We looked and they just kept turning up here and there. That was when Doctor Who was 15 years old. That train has left the station.
So you don't think there's even any in private hands? No.
Didn't one gentleman associated with the missing episodes, is it Paul Venices? Didn't one gentleman say that 4 episodes do exist in private hands recently?
No. Paul claimed to know 2 episodes and Philip Morris claimed to know 4. But Philip Morris, every word out of his mouth is a lie. He stood there at the Utopia Convention and he said, and I quote, "I promise you all that very, very soon the number of missing episodes is coming down." And then when a couple of months later I mentioned on Twitter or something his quote, he went on and said, "That's a lie, I never said it." But I've got video of the convention of him actually saying it word for word. People don't love him because he's told so many lies. The only person in the world that could have about 9 episodes and be hated.
Philip is in business, isn't he? It's a different setup rather than being an individual or the BBC themselves. That is his business, isn't it? Archive television all over the world.
The man's a pathological liar, and he led Doctor Who fans for 10 years. Now, I fell out with Pete McTighe over this because Christopher Barry, at the convention thing we had at 2013, the Excel Centre,
Excel Centre, yeah.
That he actually told Christopher Barry to his face that he was going to get to see Power of the Daleks, and Christopher Barry died. And I said, "What a tragedy that he died thinking Philip Morris was going to show him Power of the Daleks, but it never was to be." And then Pete McTighe turned on me. He said, "You're using Christopher Barry's death to criticize Philip Morris." And he blocked me on Facebook. And he never spoken to me to this day since. He's lied to everybody. Lied. He's a pathological liar.
Why would he deliberately mislead people, though, Ian? Why would that be?
He's a seriously obsessive narcissist.
Going back to the general question of the missing episodes, if you remember exactly what you've just described with the current state of play, that was very much what Richard Molesworth told us as well, wasn't it, Simon? A couple of years ago. We've had Richard on several times.
Richard Molesworth didn't listen to me. He got a lot wrong in his book that was not correct and not fair.
But he agrees with you about the...
He does agree with you that there are no more episodes out there.
I mean, Paul Vanessa's brought me Evil the Daleks 2 and Faceless Ones 3 so I could give them back. I've given back 21 episodes.
And you've saved, as you say, so many more.
50 more. The biggest story is BBC Canada because they claimed that they had wiped all the John Pertwees, all of them. And the guy that showed the Demons in Los Angeles, the last ever showing of the Demons, because I had to pay for the hire of a Betamax machine so that Tom Lundy's cousin Mike Lundy could tape it in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So he taped it on a 1-hour Betamax. I then flew in a couple of months later to see him. We went to the TV station that had shown the Demons, and a guy called Mike Trentacosta, he said, "You know, we only wiped the tape a couple of weeks ago. I didn't know it was the only one." He said, "I thought for sure that Lionheart still had it, but no, everybody wiped the tapes," and he wiped it. But he says, "I can tell you one thing, still original John Pertwee colour tapes in BBC Canada." I said, "We spoke to them, and they say they've got none. They've wiped them all." And he said, I'm telling you, I know for a fact, if you go in there in person, you'll find they're still there." So I went to Sue Mould and we got someone to go in person. Indeed, their records had said they wiped all the tapes, but they hadn't. In the basement was still every John Pertwee colour episode, all the ones we were missing.
Wow.
I got them all back. And Curse of Peladon Part 3 wouldn't play in colour because the tape was faulty. It kept jamming. When you played it on the whirling heads, it stuck to them.
Yeah.
The guy who was a friend of Keith Barnfather's took it and cleaned the heads and played 5 to 6 seconds. Then it stuck again. Took the tape off, cleaned the heads, played another 5 to 6 seconds. By the time he had it in 200 pieces, and he had to edit all the pieces together electronically. The tape was so useless, they gave it me. I've got the original tape here. Curse of Peladon Part 3.
Oh, that's the one that got screened on the Monster season in '82.
Yeah. Which it could never have done if I hadn't got it back from Canada. Remember, BBC Canada denied this. We don't have them anymore. They've been wiped. They're not here. And they were there. They just didn't know it.
So, as I say, here is the question. Given all that you've said, do you feel, and we know that you've had animosity against you, but do you feel that your legacy of having saved this stuff is sufficient and so you can live with the animosity that you've received, or does it still rankle you?
The animosity is so out of proportion. It's particularly where Gallifrey Base is concerned. You've got a whole website of Levine trolls and haters. They hate me. They won't hear a good word against me. They are so biased. Now, you also have to remember, I nearly died 3 times, very seriously. 10 years ago, I had a very bad stroke, which was a bleed on the brain, a clot in my brain, which caused me to lose the complete use of my left hand and left leg. Thank God it didn't affect my mind. The strokes on this side of the head affect your mobility. Strokes on this side of your head make you kind of gaga. You can't even form a sentence. So I'm very, very lucky it was this side. My mind hasn't suffered at all. My speech had affected at first, but I think after 10 years, I've got it back pretty good. But it could so easily have killed me. Many people die of a stroke like that. I'm very lucky that I'm still here. Then I got bladder cancer. Phase 2? Stage 2. And a big tumor in my bladder had to be removed. And it was very similar. They wanted to remove my bladder, put what's called a stoma in, being bagged. I refused. I didn't want to lose my bladder. So because I refused, they sent me to see this radiotherapy specialist called Alison Falconer, who was a genius oncologist who cured my cancer. And it's completely free now on the scan.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Cancer. I was at risk of dying. I would have died if they hadn't treated it in 2 years. In fact, the woman, the surgeon, Norma Gibbons, who wanted to take my bladder out, she said, "It won't be a pleasant death. You'll be okay for 6 months, and then you'll spend 1.5 years in agony while it spreads to your brain and your lungs, and you'll lose everything." I said, "I don't want to take my bladder out." So luckily, I thank God I did, because I've got my bladder now. I can hold my wee normally, and I bought myself an extension of 6 years.
Wow. You're a survivor, aren't you? You are a survivor.
The radiotherapy from the cancer to cure it gave me sepsis when my kidneys packed in. That's the nearest I've come to dying. The doctor said it was really 50-50 whether you lived or died. All I remember is I was in the house trying to walk to my bedroom and I fell backwards. I couldn't control myself. I was so weak. And they had to get an ambulance. I remember they had to carry me downstairs on a stretcher. And while I was in hospital, I got hallucinations. I thought the world was Groundhog Day and people were coming into the room and saying the same things over and over and over. My brain was just completely hallucinating away. Those are, my organs were packing up. I was close to dying, but thank God I pulled through. So look, I don't know how much longer I've got. I would love to live another 20 years, but I certainly want to live till I see the BBC collection range finished. Because, at the moment, we just got box set 15, which 11 to go.
Yeah.
Plus the wilderness years, which I'm very passionate about. I mean, 12 to go. So I'm hoping they'll do them over the next 6 or 7 years. So I'm hoping I'm still here. I don't know whether I'll live to 80 or whether I'll live to 90 or whether I'll live to 72. I don't know what's going to happen to me, because of the fact that my health has been terrible, but I'm still here. I've survived.
But I would really like to think, Ian, as I say, for all that animosity that you've taken in your life from fans, I would like to think that you feel that your legacy lives on.
The reason I was talking about all that was to finish what I didn't get to say, which was to say that I believe they hate me now. When I'm gone, I believe they'll realize what I've done and feel sorry for the fact that they ever slagged me. But right now, I think the number of people that have seen the Master Plan Part 1 and how close it's to the original has made people that have doubted me and slagged me off have now come on and said, look, this is marvellous. I have to hand it to you. Despite what's said in the past, this is marvellous. So the point is the BBC should be using them, and they're not going to. Let me show you a clip and talk you through and explain it. This is just a brief clip of Part 1 of the Dalek Master Plan, which, as you know, doesn't exist, but we made exist.
This is your animation of this, your reconstruction.
You're going to see Mavic Chen's Spa landing in the Dalek City, which is footage that I actually found in the BBC library. It was marked junk, and I found the can. This is footage of Daleks, which is not the real footage it looks it. This is the Doctor arriving in the Dalek City.
This is beautiful, this shot.
Looking through the grills where he said the Daleks. And this is cutting back to the TARDIS where Katerina is mending. She's tending to Stephen, very wounded by being wounded in Troy. And Brett Vian is caught inside the Doctor's magnetic chair, which the Doctor himself has clamped him into because Brett con the Doctor out of giving him the key. Anyway, now look at Katerina speak. Well, that's not real. That's all from the proper.
It's just incredible, Ian.
Yeah.
Moving. Then Brett Ryan again. That's not real. It's the mouth moving. And Stephen is virtually unconscious, of course. This is the scene where Brett saves Stephen's life by telling Katerina he's got tablets in his belt. So Katerina's going to go and get the tablets and give them to him. Now, the Doctor was in hiding behind all the trellis work, looking at the Daleks. And the Daleks expecting their ally to arrive at the spaceship landing. So the Doctor here, he sees his eyebrows move, but he's silent. So the Daleks, the Supreme Dalek, the black one, and they're waiting for the latest ally. And here he comes, which turns out to be Maverick Chen, the Guardian of the Solar System, who you've seen earlier in the episode on an interview where he was going away on holiday. So the Daleks are welcoming him. Here's Maverick. Look at the mouth movement.
That's incredible.
It's particularly good on Maverick Chen.
The footage doesn't exist. The point is that everybody that's seen these episodes has said it was like reliving them again and was bringing them to life.
It's absolutely fantastic, Ian. We can't praise you enough for it. Incredible.
It's costing $2,000 an episode to make. The BBC are spending probably $30,000 an episode on animating them. Fans say they prefer this to the animation. Why can't the BBC? Okay, if it's not quite good enough, they can come to me and say Ed was working with them, and they can look at it and say, let's analyze this. This shot is good, but this shot, the mouth movement, is not good enough. We want this changing and this changing, which me and my team, who are in Bangladesh, by the way, whole team of animators who I'm paying, they will go and change anything to get it out, and the BBC can help fine-tune it with us till they're happy, and then put it out. Can you imagine if they put the Dalek Master Plan, all 12 episodes out, 9 missing, animated like this, and the 3 existing ones, if they put out, say, in September, on a standalone Blu-ray, even if it's not good enough for Blu-ray, on a standalone DVD, but we can upscale it to high definition. Yeah. So on a standalone Blu-ray and single edition, they make a couple of £100,000 profit off it straight away. What have they got to lose?
I don't know.
Most important, they make a couple of £100,000 profit, and then in 2 years be able to use it again for season 3 collection box.
Correct.
They win every way and make money every way. Why are they so stubborn?
I don't know.
It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense at all.
Because the thing is that I find so frustrating with this is that mission, that's The Nightmare Begins, that episode 1 of the Daleks Master Plan is so watchable in the formats that you've done it in. That's what's so unusual. It's way better than a Telesnaps reconstruction, and it's way better than an animation.
You wait till you see part 3; it's even better yet.
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
Literally can't wait.
Part 3, where the Daleks exterminate Zephon, is unbelievable and fantastic. You've got Zephon trying to run away, and the Daleks exterminate him, and he crumples to the ground, and he looks like a seaweed monster because the Doctor stole his cape. But the scenes with Maverick Chen smirking while Zephon's being exterminated, that's the best bit. It looks so real. You forget you're not watching a real episode. You forget it. Especially as you can watch part 1 like AI, like what you've just seen. Then part 2 that does exist. And then 3, which we're doing at the moment, what I've done in another week, which I think is even superior to part 1. Part 3 is looking so good. I said to my guy, when we get to part 12, we're going back again and redoing part 1 from scratch because we can get it. You're getting better with every single one. Okay, Dan, there's something very important I want to put across, just in the interest of fairness and, unbiasedness. Russell Minton, I praised him to the skies because the whole idea of the collection was the way I always wanted to see Doctor Who put together. All those VHSs and DVDs we got, nobody ever put it together in order, ever, like this. The collection is superb because every episode is restored lovingly with loads of loving extras, and there was no better thing ever for Doctor Who fans. And I just watched, for instance, Horror Fang Rock. The picture quality is mind-blowing. I saw it at the BFI, but it looks even better on the Blu-ray. That to get what was shot on a 2-inch machine in low definition, in 625 lines, to get to look this sharp and this crisp, takes some serious skill. So the people that put these together, Paul Vanessa's, Peter Crocker, Steve Roberts, people like that, Mark Ayres, nothing but ultimate praise to them. And ultimate praise to Russell Minton, for being the genius behind these and making sure they keep going until the whole set's ready. But, and I know we're going to have problems with boxes 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is where we're going back to my AI reconstructions, because they're going to be done on the. If I could have found the money, I'd do all 47 missing episodes. There are 97 missing episodes, but 50 of those have been animated. The 47 episodes not available in any form, including the Crusade, which they did still recons of. But so I think Russell needs to look at proper ways to do this. I think the problem is he's too blinkered in his views of how to do it, and he won't listen. Now, much as I love him for doing these box sets, I'm very upset with his choice of animation. I don't like the Web of Fear Part 3. I think he made a mistake there. And after all the people complained about it, he went and used the same people again to do the Toy Maker. So I think he's a genius for the box sets that he makes, and I love him for it. I don't like his animation choices. I wish he was more flexible. I wish he was more open-minded to listen to someone like me. It breaks my heart that he's so stubbornly wrong about it. You know, I'm right.
Do you think that there is any mileage now? I keep coming back to this, but do you think there's any mileage now in saying to the BBC people, and let's use this show as the platform to do this? This is the commission. Why can they not look at what you've done with Masterplan so far and say, okay, then that's your pitch. And so now we would theoretically commission you. I get that they're saying we can't take something we've not commissioned. So why not take that? The Nightmare Begins as your pitch and say, commission me to do this.
Mark Ayres looked at it and said it's nowhere near good enough. And my argument is, with a little work, it can be good enough, but they're not willing to entertain it. He's saying, when you show me something that is good enough, then maybe I'll go forward. So
presumably he's saying then that the Celestial Toymaker animation is good enough, and the Web of Fear episode 3 is good enough. Is that what we're saying?
Saying the Celestial Toymaker animation is good enough. He loves it. He's gone on stage and said how proud he is of it, and he loves every bit of it. Yes,
but yours is not good enough.
I think it's not good. I don't like it at all. It looks
no, but what he's saying is the work you're doing is not good enough. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely certain the work is not good enough. Now, Ed Stradling says virtually the same thing. It's not good enough, but he agrees with if he starts analysing, this bit's good, this bit could be improved. What I'm saying is bloody work with me and we'll make it good enough.
You can't say fairer than that.
Commission, Ian, give it a go.
I want to know, have all three of you seen it?
Yes.
Yes.
It's better than anything else they've animated.
Totally agree. Totally.
I want people at least pressure the BBC to become less bloody minded and less belligerent and less intransigent. Why can't people persuade the BBC to give it a chance? If we were to do them all this way, like the Marco Polo, which I'm planning next, I'm already having tests done on it. Marco Polo, the Highlanders, the Massacre, the Mythmakers, if we were to do them all and they all got done, then there's no reason we couldn't go back and do Fury from the Deep, which needs to. The animation was appalling.
They'll never redo it.
Everything's out of proportion. They've got 24-eye seaweed fronts coming out of the sea when the helicopter's supposed to be flying between the gantries. Gary Russell just took upon himself to reinvent Doctor Who, and he did. And it's
what I don't understand is what happened to market research. I think it's very clear to me, just as you've described, this range, the collection box sets in particular, are really high sellers, strong sellers, and a fabulous line.
They won't do market research with the fans. They'll do market research with their Generation Z kids who
only the fans buy this stuff.
I know, but they don't care. They don't look at that. They don't want that. They don't want old fans buying it. They want 19-year-old kids buying it.
But they're not going to buy it. 19-year-old kids aren't going to buy it. What can you do?
Why do I get so angry? And people on Twitter go, Ian Levine is so angry all the time. How could anyone be so angry? I'm so angry because they fucked up the Who.
I'm glad.
And I'm angry with you, Ian, because that's all I want to see as a fan. That's what I want.
I think a lot of us are angry and have every right to be, but I think a lot of us are all out of patience. Generosity is running dry.
Most of the animations, like the Moon Base, the 10th Planet, were perfect. Perfect.
I thought so too.
Galaxy 4 started to drift a little bit away from what was shown. even though an episode existed, they started to redesign it a bit. And the macro terror, which was very clunky to start with, the macro was not impressive. I can tell you from memory. The macros they designed are scary and look good. So in that case, they reinvented a bit, but it worked. At least they thought small and short. So Ben was in I can remember vividly from my childhood. If you look at the existing clip, Ben's in absolutely skin tight, almost sprayed on shorts, but they're dark in color, not white. I mean, again, they put them in white shorts when it's not the right shorts. Little things like that. For the massacre, didn't they use the abbot in a black cape? Am I remembering rightly?
I can't remember. I don't think I've seen the massacre.
The Amboise wore white skull cap and a white cape, like the Pope does, exactly like the Pope. Well, I even drew it at the time to be sure I got it right. William Hartnell sitting at the desk as the abbot of Amboise when they come in at the end about the girl, and he says, "Fetch her tomorrow, bring her to me." And the camera pans round, and it's Hartnell's face in the abbot's outfit. The abbot's outfit is snow white, just like the Pope, exactly like the Pope's outfit. And the BBC audio, you see, when they put it out, put him in a black cape like he did in the Time Mender when the monk gave him a black cape. He never wore black in the massacre. It's white. So you see, nobody bothers to ask anyone that knows. They know it all so much, they don't even take the trouble to have a consultant. I was the Doctor Who consultant. I ran the Longley exhibition with Julie Jones, her and me, the whole thing together. I auctioned all the props. There's plenty of footage of me doing it with Peter Davison.
I remember it. I was there, Ian.
I did everything because in those days, if anyone asked the Doctor Who production office a question about Doctor Who, J&T ran me up and he said, "What was the answer to this?" Blah, blah, blah. He never failed to consult me. So when we did Earthshock, and I said, "You can't fire guns in the TARDIS," because it said in Hand of Fear that the TARDIS is in a state of what was it?
Temporal grace.
Yeah, because of that. And I told him that, and he said, he consulted Eric. So it affects the plot too much, so we're going to ignore that. The thing was, on the Warriors of the Deep, Eric was furious because John gave me the script. I came out with 70 mistakes. 70. And so he corrected them all. Eric then said, "I'm going to give you the script first before John sees it, because I can't have him messing with me like this. I'd rather you advise me first," which I did. The planet, the Silurians, did not come from planet Siluria for a start.
Oh my God!
Even I know that.
Even I know that.
No, the point is that what's his name that wrote it?
Johnny Byrne.
Byrne I'd given him a copy of the Silurians and the Sea Devils to watch. He hadn't bothered, so he didn't bother studying what they were.
Right.
He had them as aliens coming to the planet Siluria, which pissed me off no end, which I did change. So a lot. And then again, we had another thing. When the Warriors Gate, when the script, I read the script thoroughly, that the Lion people called Tharks, T-H-A-R-K-S, which I had no problem with at all. But when I went into the studio booth, in the middle of recording on the first night, they're calling them Thals. I called John to do that because the Daleks and the Thals are too famous. This is we recorded too much. We can't get around it. So he's told the director to call them Tharals, and hopefully that no one would notice on the couple of times they'd already done where they call them Thals. Point is, the recording started at lunchtime the first day, and I didn't get there till 7 o'clock. When I got there, 7:30 actually. When I got there, they were calling them Thals, which is preposterous, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I was there for to be consulted. I mean, okay, Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall knew their who.
Yeah.
They don't need someone like me, but in other examples, people need someone that's a bit of an expert. And there aren't many experts with the knowledge that I've got. So having said that, before you close, I want you to pick some questions at random out of your quiz book.
Well, I was going to say, even though all these various characters, they won't seem to ask you any questions. The three of us, and no doubt everybody listening and watching out there, we've got tons of questions that we have to ask you about just a few of the things that you've touched on this edition of the show. We're going to have to save them for another time. But yeah,
we'll come
Trivia, I think. Let's see what the ultimate Doctor Who fan may have locked between his ears.
I'm worried to get myself up here.
The pressure's on.
Now, this book, my friend, is called So You Think You Know Doctor Who?
Come on, pick at random.
So what we're going to do is you're going to give me a number between 1 and 121, first of all.
64.
64. And now a number between 41 and 49, please, Ian.
43.
At number 43. This is a question from this real, genuine book everybody can go out there and buy. It's So You Think You Know Doctor Who. They don't know it well enough to use the word doctor rather than the abbreviation. Yeah, so question 43 is, which of the first Doctor stories received the highest British viewing figures? The Smugglers, the Celestial Toymaker, or the Web Planet?
Smugglers, Toymaker, and Wiles. Web Planet. That's a guess. Because by Smugglers and Toymaker, the figures were down.
It is. Drum roll, please, everybody. The answer is the Web Planet.
It was obvious.
Yay!
Very good.
Yes, because the figures were down by season 3. Season 3 is the best season in the history of Doctor Who. The fact that it was fiction that Harlan didn't get on with John Wiles is irrelevant to the fact that they made the best stories in a row. The Mythmakers, the Dalek Massacre, and the Massacre are the best Doctor Who's in history. It's never been beaten.
Well, I have to take your word for it because I've never seen it.
Because we're nearly finished part 2 of the Master Plan. You get to see them all.
Brilliant. Can't wait.
Come on, you pick a question at random.
Just pick a question out.
Pick one at random. Okay, we have. Okay.
Any page and pick a question.
We have, this is on page, for anybody following and playing along, listening or watching, this is on page 43, and it's question number...
About ratings, please.
I beg your pardon?
No questions about ratings. I want questions about the show.
Proper questions, says Ian Levine. Question 12. In which story set around oil exploration does the second Doctor fly a helicopter?
A Fury from the Deep.
Yes, you don't need to look at the answer.
No, that's well done. You want to go for one more? You want to go for the hat trick?
5 more.
Tough one.
5 more?
5 more. Best of 5. 2 out of 5 so far.
Okay. This is question 22 on page 91. In the Moonbase, the Cybermen had undergone a redesign. Their fingers were replaced with claws, but how many were on each hand?
I think 4.
Can I have a guess on that one? I think it's 3.
No, you get mixed up with some Sontarans.
Could be right.
It's 3.
I get a point.
How many questions?
I get 1 point against the Master Ian Levine.
Go on, try another one.
Question 29. In The Trial of a Time Lord, who played King Yrcanos? Tim Piggott-Smith, Brian Blessed. There we are. Got to that right away.
That's too easy. I know that one. It's got to be hard.
Can't you find him a really tough one?
I'm doing them.
The Fury from the Deep question. That's the kind of question I want. Factual questions about the black and white era.
Okay.
Oh, any era, because I can answer any era.
On page 81, and this is question 47, who feeds Keeler raw meat to speed up his changing into a crinoid?
The butler, Hargreaves, wasn't it? Yes, played by Seymour Green, was also in the Twin Dilemma, under the orders of Harrison Chase.
Correct.
Yeah,
The butler did it.
They don't even name the butler.
No.
One more.
One more question.
One more. Okay.
What have you got? You got 3 out of 5. 3 out of 4 so far.
I got one wrong because I didn't.
Only one wrong.
How many fingers the bloody sun?
You got 3 out of 4.
I want questions about the history of the show. Go on.
In The Awakening, the people of Little Hodcombe plan to reenact which famous English war?
Oh, the Civil War, isn't it?
Yeah, Civil War.
Yeah,
I'd have gone with that. Yeah.
Of course, the Civil War. Yeah.
Yes, Civil War.
Of course, it's Dennis Lill.
And the answer is the English Civil War.
Said
Good.
immediately.
So you got 4 out of 5. That's not bad.
I'm trivia, like minutiae and trivia, doesn't interest me. I know about plots and names and characters, and story. What happened in each story.
Okay, one more. Here's one more then to prove it's not a fluke. This is on page 87, question 22.
Oh,
In Spearhead.
on.
Beg your pardon?
Never mind what page it's on. Just
It's them playing along. It's so people don't think I'm fiddling it.
Yeah.
In Spearhead from Space, what is the name of the plastic doll factory which is manufacturing autons?
that's hard. Oh,
You did ask.
that's hard.
It's
Something.
oh yeah, that's got me.
General Scobie says the chaps are autoplastics, so it must be autoplastics.
And the answer, everybody, is autoplastics. There.
There you go. Well done. I couldn't remember that.
I was getting confused between one and the other of the autons.
Scobie saying the chaps at autoplastics, very nice chaps. You know, remember that line. So that's how. Oh, one more. Try to find a factual question about Hartnell Trap.
Okay. This is on page 51 and question 35 for those playing along. In The Faceless Ones, what is the name of the creatures who wish to kidnap 50,000 young humans and replace them on Earth?
Chameleons. You wouldn't even get me that word in there.
Correct.
The chameleon.
What's that? Is that about 10 out of 10 by now?
That was too easy. Another one. That was too easy.
He's on a man on a mission here. Right, okay. On page 105, this is question 41. In The Mind of Evil, what is the name of the machine which absorbs evil from criminals?
It's an alien power. Oh, Keller machine, of course.
Yeah, Keller machine. It is. Yeah.
We know it. You don't have to look it up.
And the answer, everybody, is indeed the Keller machine. There it is in black and white.
What did you do? Big surprise.
One final one, hard one from the hard section.
Oh, from the heart, from the okay. Let's. This is. You've actually had a couple from the difficult section already, but I'll deliberately go right to the difficult, the mega double hard bastard questions here. Let's see if we can get him. We can sort him out. Okay. On page 123, and this is question 45. What was the name of the first person to die on Argolis being torn apart in the tachyon recreation generator?
Oh, God, that's hard.
I know.
Visitor Loman.
It is Lohman. I'm 99% certain it's Lohman.
Visitor Loman.
And the answer is right at the back of the book. It is indeed Lohman.
Woohoo!
Fantastic.
Round of applause for Ian Levine.
Here you go. Right. The first time that Katie Manning as Joe Grant stepped foot in the TARDIS with John Pertwee, the TARDIS took off under the control of the Time Lords. What planet did it head for?
Oxarius.
Yeah, very good.
Woohoo! Bring it on.
That is a hard question.
We need a whole show like this where we just throw questions around.
Come back just for more of this, Ian.
We've got to get you in back for more of this.
Earlier on, obviously, we've talked about social media, your love-hate relationship with social media and it with you, but they can find you, can't they?
Go onto Facebook, www.facebook.com. Everyone knows that. And then in the search box, type in Ian Levine Doctor Who group. You'll find it straight away. You won't be able to see what's on it because it's private. All you have to do is just apply to join, and then you'll be allowed to see what's in it when you join. It's free. It's got the most. You get sneak previews and stuff like the master plan before anybody else, and there's no reason not to join it.
Ian Levine's.
Sarah, are you in that group?
I'm not in your group, but I will be in your group. I am on Facebook.
I cannot understand me. Trying to think of one more super difficult question for you. One more. Okay. When the Doctor and Stephen and Sarah Kingdom stepped into the molecular disseminator and were shot halfway across the galaxy, what planet did they arrive at?
Tigers?
What?
Was it Tigers?
No, that volcano. No, that Doctor.
Oh God, yeah.
It's going to have to be a complete guess.
A clue. The creatures they're invisible, called the Visians.
Yeah, I remember the Visions. I can't think what planet they're from. You got me on that, Ian.
Steven and Sarah steal the Dalek pursuit ship and get back to Kemble.
No, you've got me on it. No, give in.
Really?
Yeah.
All of you?
Give it. What letter does it begin with?
M for mother.
Should be able to get it from that.
Oh, I'm going to kick myself.
No.
The planet Myra.
Oh, of course, Myra. Of course.
I didn't know that. I'd be
Should have got it. I knew that. Should have got that.
Upside down, and back to front. Which questions were more tough?
Oh,
Definitely, yeah. I think
you need to write a book, basically, and you need to write a book.
You ever written a book, Ian?
Yeah, I wrote my autobiography. I've got lots of books.
Of course he's written a book. Of course he's written a book.
600 pages long. We only made 50 copies for my friends.
I remember.
Very libelous and scandalous and outrageous and X-rated, so the public could never read it. But it's got all that Doctor Who history in it.
Let's get you back and we'll do some more of those stories.
Absolutely, more gold to mine for. Never mind what they say on your fan club on Gallifrey base, that love-hate relationship or hate-love relationship you have with social media. You may still be an upstart after all, Ian Levine, but you're absolutely unstoppable too. And we can't wait to have you back for more here at Type 40. But for now, thank you so much for your company.
You.
Thank you, Ian.
I genuinely love Doctor Who.
Totally.
No question.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, you should try and persuade the BBC to allow the use of these artificial intelligence recreations, because they will not only look like the episode, but they'll be accurate and completely faithful to what was shown.
Yeah, totally agree.
That's all we want, which is you just want other fans to be able to see.
Another Mr. No is totally faithful in every scene, and yet they refuse to even look at it. They refuse to accept it free. God forbid what kind of mess they're going to make if they don't use it, do it themselves.
Yeah, I know. That's the terrifying part.
Still toymaker team. Can you imagine if they got their hands on the master plan? You'd have a Mavic Chen with spider legs.
Find out more, hear more from Ian Levine on his Facebook group there. You can find that on Facebook, just as the man said. Ian, thanks again for your company. Best of luck with these projects too. It's a fabulous effort. We can't wait to find out a little bit more. But for now, Ian Levine, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Back to the TARDIS, I was going to say then. Back to the present day. But I think that would be a little unfair. Ian Levine isn't a man who strikes me as someone who lives in the past. Although it's probably something that a lot of people believe to be the case. His mind and his eye, I feel, are very much on the here and now, what's possible, the could-be's and the why-nots. I think that's probably the best way to be, Sarah, going forward in the future, following something like Doctor Who.
Well, yeah, absolutely. This show can go on forever as long as it's taken care of. There's new technology developing all the time, as we've seen with, the onset of AI. What can be done, the art, the possibilities, and what Ian and his team are doing at the moment. It shows, yes, he's bringing the past back to life, but he's doing it in such a wonderful, modern way. I'm just really excited to see where this is all going. What else is going to come from this?
It's very bold, isn't it, Simon? I mean, Ian's a very resolute man. Some would say quite militant, but he's agreeable. And I don't think he takes himself anywhere near as seriously as he's perhaps painted. He brought up, didn't he, the single. You did that, Ian. And with a slight grin, just in the corner of your mouth, I think. Maybe it's the smile of submission after all these decades. I don't know. But I think Ian was a great sport, very, very generous with his time, and obviously those precious personal memories.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, what I particularly enjoyed about chatting to Ian was that he really seemed to enjoy the conversation we were having, which was great to see. Because the thing is, so much, as I say at the beginning of the show, I remember Ian being from way back in the early 80s as kind of, in effect, he was almost like the official Doctor Who fan. He was kind of representative of Doctor Who fandom. And so that's a big mantle to carry, really. And you forget that actually he is a human being. He's a person as well. Okay, he's got strong opinions, but I think most Doctor Who fans have got strong opinions.
Exactly.
And I think actually, in all honesty, he's very, very fair, because he's not purely living in the past. Yes, he loves the past and he loves early Doctor Who, and that's where his heart lies with Doctor Who fandom. But he's still prepared to embrace modern Doctor Who as well, and as you say, Sarah, embrace the technology of the day. So he's not living in the past at all, and I just found it a pleasure to talk to him. Somebody that I've never ever spoken to before, but have known for literally decades. So it's all good fun. We're all Doctor Who fans together at the end of the day.
This is it. It's all part of fandom. The strong opinions, the passion, the likes, the dislikes.
Yeah.
We're all entitled to our opinions, and to me, it was just wonderful to have a chat with a long-standing Doctor Who fan who knows so much and is willing to share that with, you know, the younger fans and everybody. And there isn't this elitism.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really glad that he is against all that. And he's just a bloke who likes Doctor Who, and
He's a fan.
yeah, we
Just
all
all of
like
us.
Doctor Who.
I'm happy to say that Ian will be back sooner rather than later. Again, though, the story of his mission to take those missing episodes forward, assisted by AI, that continues apace. Track the journey by joining Ian Levine's Doctor Who group on Facebook or follow him on X. That's the old girl starting up calling time on another Type 40. Another one's on the way, though. Of course it is. Look out for that wherever you found this. Maybe on the dedicated home feed for Type 40, type40.podbean.com. Maybe we rolled up on the podcatcher of your choice. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, all those places. We're also on YouTube, the world's largest streaming platform, on the Type 40 channel, with extended video editions of each and every show. There's exclusive extra Type 40s, as well as our sister show, that weekly live stream magazine show, Type 40 Live, completely raw, completely live, where anything can happen, anything can be said, and often is. Get all of that at Type 40 on YouTube. Plus, we're still on the fabulous Fandom Podcast Network's master feed, loaded up with so many treats for your ears. Never mind on the weekly. They're coming at you on the daily. Please consider a trip sideways in time for more quality shows from the FPN. Maybe you'd like to have your say about all of this. You can do that through our social medias, Instagram and X at Type40 Doctor Who, or email us type40doctorwho@outlook.com. There's always the Type 40 Facebook group to join the discussion, the never-ending debates on the virtues or not of the classic and the new series. There, patiently waiting the launch, the premiere of the first season of all new Doctor Who, starring Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. We'll help one another through the next couple of months, and as always, mop up after the party. Sarah, Simon, thank you again for joining me on this one. Where can people find you on social media, Sarah?
You can find me on X at Story-Eyed Who, and you can also find me on Facebook, and of course, Type 40 Live.
There you go. How about you, Simon? Where can you be found on social media?
I can only be found on Facebook, where I am running the Doctor Who, the Whonatics group. And of course, as Sarah says, I'm on the Type 40 page all the time.
Easy. We're easy to find. And you can get hold of me, Instagram and X, as the Spacebook, wheezing and groaning, ranting and raving about all things geeky inside and outside of the TARDIS, in TV, movies, comic books, and all manner of other things, including a little bit of everyday life. I do have an everyday life, as strange as it may seem. Once again, our gratitude to Ian Levine. Whatever you take away from our conversation, you can't doubt he's an extraordinary man. How do we follow that? We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40. Take care. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.